He thought he could hide his secret forever, until her bare feet turned silence into something electric. One glance, one touch, and the balance between desire and control began to shift. Welcome to Goddess Foot Confessions. Let's uncover what really happened. I've always been good at hiding things. Maybe too good, but some secrets cling to you no matter how tightly you try to squeeze them out of sight. Mean it? It's simple, but it feels like a lifetime. I have a thing for feet. Not just any feet, but the delicate curves, the way toes flex or rest softly against skin. It's a fascination I never dared speak aloud, especially not to her. She was different. She noticed things others missed. The way my eyes lingered a second too long when her shoes slipped off, or how I involuntarily shifted closer when her bare foot brushed the floor near mine. I convinced myself she didn't see it, that maybe it was just me projecting. But deep down I knew she knew. The thought both terrified and thrilled me. Tonight was no different. The quiet hum of the apartment wrapped around me like a familiar cloak, the soft glow of streetlights filtering through the blinds. She hadn't said much since she got here, but the energy in the room was electric, charged with unspoken words and half-glances. I tried to focus on anything else, the worn leather couch, the quiet ticking of the clock, but then she shifted. Slowly, barefoot, she stretched her leg out, and the arch of her foot caught the light. My breath hitched before I could stop it. She caught me looking. A small smile played on her lips, that knowing smile that told me she wasn't just observing. She was playing. And somehow, the game was already hers. The rain had been relentless all afternoon, drumming softly against the windows and turning the streets slick with shimmering reflections. She arrived just as twilight settled in, her usual confident stride tempered by an almost childlike hesitation. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, the faint scent of damp earth and fresh rain wrapped around me. She was barefoot. I noticed immediately the way her socks were nowhere to be seen, how her heels left delicate imprints on the floor as she crossed the room. She smiled, a little mischievous, and said, "My socks got soaked. Didn't want to ruin your floor." The casualness of her voice was almost a dare. I tried to keep my composure, but I was already watching her feet. The arches were soft and smooth, the toes slightly splayed as she stretched them, rubbing her heels lightly against the rug. Every subtle movement felt amplified, every shift a gentle invitation. She knew exactly what effect it had on me. I could feel the tension coil inside me like a spring. She caught my eyes. That smile widened, teasing. Without a word, she extended one foot slowly toward me, the curve of her instep almost hypnotic under the dim light. My breath caught involuntarily, and I had to remind myself to breathe. "Like what you see?" she whispered. I tried to answer, but words failed me. Instead, I reached out hesitantly and brushed my fingers over her ankle, marveling at the delicate warmth beneath my touch. She let out a soft sigh, part laughter, part something more, and leaned back completely at ease. In that quiet, rain-soaked room, something shifted between us, subtle, electric, and impossible to ignore. She wasn't just here to visit. She was here to remind me of the secret I'd kept buried so long. And she wasn't afraid to use it. The evening settled around us like a soft blanket, but the air between us was anything but still. We sat side by side, the quiet hum of the city filtering through the open window, yet every sound felt distant compared to the beating of my heart. She had this way of looking at me, like she was peeling back layers I didn't even realize I was wearing. My gaze flickered down, and there it was again, the subtle, deliberate way she let her bare foot brush against my leg. The contact was feather-light, almost accidental, but my skin prickled all the same. I tried to hide the reaction, but my eyes betrayed me. I caught the flicker of amusement in hers, that knowing smile lingering on her lips as she held my gaze. She said nothing. Instead, she let her foot rest just a fraction longer against my calf, toes flexing ever so slightly. My breath hitched. The silence grew thick, loaded with things neither of us dared say aloud. For a moment, I thought about pulling away, breaking the spell. But something kept me rooted, like a moth drawn to a flame too dangerous to touch. Our eyes locked again, and it was clear she wasn't just testing boundaries. She was inviting me in. The way she moved, slow, deliberate, unhurried, made it impossible to ignore the growing tension. Her bare skin against mine, the soft curves of her toes, the gentle warmth radiating from every touch. It was a language all its own. I swallowed hard, the words I wanted to say tangled up in nerves and desire. Instead, I let the silence speak. Because sometimes the most powerful things aren't said aloud, they're felt. The night deepened, and the soft glow from the lamp cast long shadows across the room. We had shifted to the couch, settling into a silence that was both comfortable and charged. A worn blanket lay draped between us, inviting warmth on this cool evening. Without thinking, she pulled the blanket closer around her shoulders and, almost imperceptibly, extended her bare foot under its folds. It slid forward, the smooth skin of her heel brushing lightly against my calf. The contact was soft, hesitant, yet sent a ripple through me that I couldn't hide. My eyes found hers, searching for a clue, and in response, she gave the faintest smile, one that held mischief and something deeper, a silent invitation. I shifted slightly, trying to remain composed, but the warmth of her touch lingered, spreading through me like a quiet fire. The blanket became a subtle barrier and bridge all at once, hiding her foot while letting me feel it, a secret shared in the hush of the night. For a moment, the room seemed to shrink, the world outside fading into irrelevance. All that mattered was the delicate press of her skin against mine, the unspoken conversation we were having through every slight movement. She flexed her toes gently, the motion slow and deliberate, and I felt my breath catch again. There was an intimacy in that small gesture, an unspoken understanding that this was more than chance or accident. It was a game, and I was already losing. The silence stretched on, heavy with possibility, until finally she shifted her foot away, pulling back beneath the blanket with a teasing grin. But the warmth remained, in my skin, in my mind, and in the quiet space between us. I realized then that this wasn't just about feet. It was about trust, boundaries, and the slow unraveling of a secret we were both too curious to resist. As the night wore on, memories surfaced like shadows in the flickering lamplight. I hadn't realized how much time had passed since we were close, truly close. Back then, things had been simpler, more innocent. We'd laughed without hesitation, shared secrets without second thoughts. But something changed. An awkwardness settled between us, a quiet tension born from unspoken truths and the weight of things neither of us dared to say. I wondered if she remembered those days too, or if she only saw me now, this nervous, guarded version of myself, hiding behind layers of restraint. She caught my gaze again, and for a moment I thought I saw something vulnerable flicker in her eyes. Maybe she remembered too. The way she sat, barefoot and relaxed, reminded me of afternoons spent lounging in the sun, feet bare on warm pavement, careless and free. Those memories clashed with the current, charged atmosphere, the subtle dance of desire and restraint that played out in every glance and touch. I felt a pang, a longing for what had been, mixed with confusion over what was becoming. Her toes flexed lightly as she stretched them toward the floor, the delicate curve of her arch catching the light. The sight was innocent, yet charged with meaning. I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how much I wanted to reach out to bridge the gap that years and silence had created. But I didn't. Instead, I watched, fascinated and afraid, as she took control without a word. The game had shifted, and I was a willing participant, caught somewhere between past and present, comfort and curiosity. The old feelings mixed with something new, a slow-burning tension that promised neither certainty nor easy answers. And as she looked at me with that familiar, knowing smile, I realized this night was not just a revisit of the past. It was the beginning of something entirely different. The next morning, the smell of coffee and toast drifted through the apartment, weaving a gentle calm over the space. I found her in the kitchen, standing barefoot on the cool tiles, sunlight filtering through the window and casting soft patterns on her skin. She moved with a casual grace, stretching her feet as if the floor itself invited her to dance. The sight unsettled me in a way I hadn't expected. The way her toes flexed slowly, the smooth curve of her heels pressed lightly against the ground. "Can you massage my heel?" she asked suddenly, her voice light, but carrying an edge of playfulness. I froze. My hands hovered uncertainly, heart pounding in my chest. The request wasn't just about the heel. It was a test, a gentle invitation wrapped in casual words. I could feel her watching me, the challenge clear in her eyes. Trying to steady myself, I reached out slowly, fingers brushing the tender skin just above her ankle. The warmth under my touch was immediate, and I felt a shiver run through me. "Relax," she whispered, a knowing smile curling at the corners of her mouth. "It's just a foot." But it wasn't just a foot. It was every secret I'd kept hidden, every flutter of desire I'd tried to deny. Her toes flexed, teasing as I began to knead gently. The room seemed to shrink around us, the sounds fading to a distant hum. My focus narrowed to the delicate movements of my hands, the way her skin yielded under my touch. She sighed softly, leaning back against the counter, eyes half closed. There was a vulnerability in that moment, a silent exchange that needed no words. And as the morning light warmed us, I realized she was no longer just the woman I knew. She was becoming something more, the keeper of my secret, the one who held the power to unravel me, one gentle touch at a time. Her smile deepened as I continued the slow, careful massage. There was a playful glint in her eyes, like she was savoring the control she held over me, the silent power that came from knowing exactly what stirred beneath my calm exterior. "Relax," she whispered again, voice low and soft, brushing against my skin like a gentle caress. "It's just a foot." But I knew better. It was never just a foot. Each curve, each flex of her toes, was a thread weaving me tighter in her web, subtle, irresistible. My fingers traced the arch of her foot, lingering on the delicate swell of her heel, and I caught myself holding my breath. She watched me closely, eyes sparkling with quiet amusement and something else, a knowingness that made my heart race. The silence between us grew thicker, charged with the unspoken. Her bare foot shifted, brushing lightly against my wrist. Accidental or not, I couldn't tell. The warmth of her skin sent a shiver through me, and I tightened my grip just a little, as if holding onto the moment might keep it from slipping away. I wanted to say something, to confess the storm inside me, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I let the quiet speak. In that suspended moment, I realized how far I'd come from the man who once hid his fascination in shadows. Here, with her, under the soft morning light, my secret was no longer a burden but a bridge, a connection forged in the delicate tension of touch and trust. She smiled again, the curve of her lips both an invitation and a promise. And I knew, whatever this was between us, it was only just beginning. Later that afternoon, we settled into the cozy corner of the living room, each with a steaming mug of cocoa warming our hands. The soft light from the window cast a honeyed glow over everything, making the space feel safe, intimate, like a world carved out just for us. I found myself stealing glances at her feet, tucked beneath her legs, toes gently tapping the floor in a rhythm that matched the quickening pulse in my chest. The moment felt fragile, suspended between curiosity and restraint. Finally, I swallowed my nerves and spoke, voice low and uneven. "I have a weakness," I admitted, fingers tightening around the warm mug. "It's unusual." She looked up, eyes bright with understanding, the faintest smile curving her lips. "I already knew," she said softly, reaching out to brush a stray lock of hair from my forehead. Her touch was gentle but confident, like a quiet reassurance that I wasn't alone. Her bare foot nudged mine beneath the table, slow and deliberate. The contact was soft but unmistakable, a reminder of the silent language we'd been speaking all evening. I felt a flush rise to my cheeks, but didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned into the moment, letting the warmth spread, not just from the cocoa, but from the unspoken bond between us. She studied me thoughtfully, then said, "There's no shame in what you feel. It's part of who you are." Her words settled over me like a balm, easing the tight coil of anxiety I'd carried for so long. For the first time, I felt seen, truly seen, and it was both terrifying and liberating. As the cocoa cooled between our hands, I realized this conversation was more than a confession. It was a beginning. After our quiet confession, something shifted between us. The air felt different, charged with possibility, tension, and a slow-burning anticipation neither of us fully understood yet. She began to test the waters in subtle, deliberate ways. Nothing overt, just small moments carefully crafted to see how far I'd follow and how much I was willing to reveal. One afternoon, she stretched out on the couch, her bare feet resting near my lap. The way her toes flexed against the soft blanket was almost hypnotic. I caught myself staring, heart pounding, but she said nothing, only smiled, the hint of a challenge in her eyes. Later, she would let her foot brush against my leg in passing, a casual touch that felt anything but. Each contact was a silent question, an invitation to respond or retreat. I found myself inching closer, drawn to the vulnerability and power wrapped up in those simple gestures. The boundaries between us blurred, shifting like sand underfoot. She watched me carefully, gauging my reactions, pushing just enough to see my limits without breaking them. Her confidence was intoxicating, a stark contrast to my hesitant, guarded nature. And yet, beneath the surface, I sensed her own curiosity, a quiet need to explore this new, dynamic we'd created. Every encounter became a dance of tension and trust. I learned to read the language of her feet. The way a flex could mean comfort, a brush could be flirtation, and a stillness might signal something deeper. In the quiet spaces between words, we built a fragile understanding. This wasn't just a game anymore. It was an exploration, a journey into uncharted territory where control and surrender wove together in an intricate balance. And as she leaned back, letting her foot rest softly on my thigh, I knew one thing for certain. Nothing between us would ever be the same again. That evening, we settled in to watch a movie, the room dim and quiet except for the soft flicker of the screen. The couch felt smaller somehow, the space between us charged with unspoken energy. She shifted closer, her bare foot sliding gently toward my lap. It was casual, almost innocent, but every inch felt deliberate, every movement weighted with meaning. My breath hitched when her arch pressed softly against my thigh. I froze, unsure whether to pull away or lean in. She caught my hesitation and smiled knowingly, as if daring me to embrace the moment. Her toes flexed slowly, a slow dance of subtle control, teasing and coaxing without a single word. I couldn't stop staring. The curve of her foot, the smoothness of her skin, the quiet way she rested, confident yet vulnerable. The movie played on, but my attention was elsewhere. The silence between us grew thicker, heavy with possibilities we both felt but wouldn't voice. I shifted slightly, letting my hand rest near hers, careful not to break the fragile balance. Her foot pressed a little firmer, sending a warmth that spread through me, a reminder of the intimacy weaving between us. Neither of us spoke, but the language was clear: trust, curiosity, and the slow unfolding of something more. Time seemed to slow as the distance between us disappeared. In that quiet, dimly lit room, I realized the boundaries were fading. She wasn't just the woman I'd known. She was the one leading me into something new, something fragile and powerful. And with her foot resting on my lap, I knew I was ready to follow. The night deepened, and the room grew quieter except for the soft sounds of the movie playing in the background. We sat still, her bare foot resting on my lap like a delicate weight, a presence I couldn't ignore. I noticed how she held herself, calm, confident, fully in control. There was a silent power in the way she let that foot linger, a statement more commanding than words could ever be. I didn't move it. That small act, or lack of one, felt monumental. It was as if by simply not pulling away, I was giving her something, permission, trust, an unspoken agreement between us. Her toes flexed slowly, lightly, almost teasingly, and I felt the warmth radiate through me. Every gentle movement was a conversation, every pause a question waiting to be answered. I caught her eyes across the room, steady, sure, filled with something deeper than mischief. The silence between us thickened, a palpable thread weaving our connection tighter. The world outside faded away, leaving only this fragile, intimate moment suspended in time. Her foot brushed my thigh again, this time with intention, deliberate and unhurried, and my breath hitched. There was no rush, no pressure, just the quiet strength of presence. In that stillness, I realized how much she held the balance of power, not by force, but by quiet command, by knowing exactly what to do and when. I was caught willingly, and I didn't want to be anywhere else. A few days later, she invited me over again. The room was softly lit, warm with the faint scent of lavender and freshly polished nails. She sat comfortably on the edge of the sofa, one bare foot resting delicately on the ottoman. Her toes were painted a glossy, deep red, a stark contrast against her pale skin, and the subtle shimmer caught the light every time she flexed them slowly. "I just got this done," she said casually, lifting her foot slightly for me to see. There was no hesitation in her tone, only a quiet confidence, as if knowing exactly the effect her words and presence had on me. I tried not to stare, but my eyes were drawn to the curve of her arch, the gentle way her toes curled and stretched like dancers rehearsing a silent ballet. She watched me closely, the teasing smile returning. "Like what you see?" she asked softly. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah," I managed, voice barely above a whisper. Without a word, she let her foot slide down the ottoman and lightly brush against my shin. The contact was brief, but electric, a quiet affirmation of the game we were playing. Our conversation drifted to simple things. The weather, a new cafe in town, but beneath it all was an undercurrent of tension, a delicate dance of power and surrender wrapped in every glance and gesture. Her pedicure was more than just cosmetic. It was a signal, a secret language spoken through polished nails and the arch of a foot. I realized then that every detail mattered. The color, the texture, the way she carried herself, as if she owned this small kingdom of subtle control. And I was more than willing to be her willing subject, drawn deeper into the world she crafted with such effortless grace. The days passed with an unspoken tension that seemed to hang in the air between us like a delicate thread, taut and ready to snap. Every glance, every casual brush of skin against skin carried weight far beyond the ordinary. We moved through familiar spaces, the kitchen, the living room, quiet walks in the evening, but the undercurrent of something unsaid pulsed beneath the surface, unrelenting and persistent. Her bare feet seemed to hold a language all their own. A slight flex here, a subtle touch there, each moment carefully measured to test and tease. I found myself caught in a web of desire and hesitation, caught between the urge to reach out and the fear of crossing invisible lines. One evening, she rested her foot just a little too long against my ankle, her eyes locking with mine in a silent dare. The silence stretched between us, thick and electric. Neither of us spoke, yet everything was said in the shared look, the quickening of breath, the tension that made my skin prickle. It was a dance of restraint and longing, a slow, simmering connection that defied explanation. I wanted to break the silence, to voice the feelings swirling inside me, but the words dissolved before they could form. Instead, I let the moment linger, savoring the quiet charge that bound us together. It was both beautiful and terrifying, the knowledge that something was shifting, evolving beyond what either of us could control. And though we said nothing, the unspoken tension between us spoke louder than any confession ever could. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled through the windows, I caught sight of her reflection in the mirror across the room. She was seated at the table, her bare foot resting lightly on the edge, toes curling slowly as if tracing invisible patterns in the air. The delicate curve of her arch caught the light just so, smooth, elegant, impossible to ignore. It was like watching a secret come to life, a quiet invitation I couldn't turn away from. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The reflection held a promise, a whisper of something unspoken between us. I found myself drawn closer, the pull magnetic and undeniable. She glanced up, catching me watching, and a slow smile spread across her lips, the kind that said she knew exactly what I was thinking and that she liked it. The mirror became a silent witness to the growing connection, capturing every subtle movement, every flicker of emotion in her eyes. As she flexed her toes and shifted her foot gently, I felt the tension coil tighter, the boundaries between observer and participant blurring. It wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was a mirror of us, our secret language, our slow unraveling. I swallowed, heart racing, aware that this quiet moment was as charged as any spoken confession. Without breaking eye contact, she slowly withdrew her foot, the grace of the movement echoing the growing intimacy between us. The mirror caught the faintest hint of a blush on my cheeks as I looked away, but the memory of that reflection, of her, of us, lingered long after. It was a moment suspended between light and shadow, hesitation and desire, a quiet turning point in the story we were writing together. Her birthday was a quiet affair, just the two of us in the softly lit apartment. The air hummed with a kind of expectancy, a warmth that had little to do with candles or gifts. She smiled, that teasing smile I'd come to recognize as the beginning of something, a challenge, a game, an unspoken invitation. "I have a dare for you," she said suddenly, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I raised an eyebrow, curious but cautious. "If you lose," she continued, "you owe me a foot massage. 10 minutes. No implants." The challenge was simple, but the stakes fell high, at least for me. I nodded, swallowing the nervous flutter in my chest. We settled into the game, a series of small bets and playful contests, quick rounds of cards, trivial questions, moments of laughter and light teasing. I could feel her watching me closely, gauging my reactions, testing my limits. Then it happened. I lost. She leaned back with a triumphant smile, stretching out her legs with slow grace. One bare foot came to rest just inches from where I sat. "Well?" she said softly, raising an eyebrow. My heart raced. I reached out hesitantly, fingers trembling slightly as they found the smooth skin of her ankle. The warmth under my touch was immediate, spreading through me like wildfire. Her toes flexed lightly, as if daring me to continue. The room seemed to hold its breath, the quiet filled only with the sound of my own racing pulse. I began the massage, slow, careful, reverent, my hands moving over the curve of her heel, the delicate arch, the gentle stretch of her toes. She watched me the entire time, eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. A soft sigh escaped her lips, a sound so subtle but so powerful it sent a shiver down my spine. In that moment, I realized the balance of power had shifted, and I was more than willing to follow. Her foot rested lightly in my hands, warm and soft like a secret I was only just beginning to understand. I moved slowly, careful not to rush, tracing the gentle curves of her heel and arch with reverence. Each motion was deliberate, almost meditative, as though I was learning a language spoken only through touch. Her toes curled slightly under my fingers, a subtle response that sent a ripple through me. She watched me intently, eyes never leaving mine, a quiet smile playing on her lips. The air between us was thick with anticipation, a fragile moment stretched taut between curiosity and trust. I could feel the rhythm of her breathing slow, the tension in her foot easing under my touch. The softness of her skin, the slight give beneath my palms, made every movement feel intimate and significant. A quiet sigh escaped her lips, barely audible, but enough to make my heart skip. The room seemed to shrink around us, the outside world fading into irrelevance. All that mattered was the connection we shared, a bond woven through gentle pressure and silent understanding. She flexed her toes slowly, and I followed, mirroring the movement with my hands. The simple synchronization was hypnotic, drawing us closer in ways words never could. For a moment, I forgot everything but her. The warmth of her foot, the light in her eyes, the unspoken promise hanging between us. In that stillness, I realized this massage was more than just a touch. It was a conversation without words, a dance of vulnerability and power, a step deeper into the uncharted territory we were creating together. And with every stroke, I was learning to surrender, not just to her, but to the desire and trust that had quietly blossomed between us. After that soft moan, everything between us seemed to change subtly, irrevocably. The gentle massage had become a silent surrender, a moment where the balance of power quietly tipped. She wasn't just allowing me to touch her. She was guiding me, leading me deeper into a dance of control and trust. Her eyes held a new kind of certainty, calm, confident, unyielding. It was clear she understood the power she wielded, not through force, but through the quiet command of her presence. I realized then that this wasn't just about desire or fascination. It was about surrender, hers and mine. The shift wasn't abrupt, but a slow unfolding, like dawn breaking over a dark horizon. I watched as she flexed her toes with deliberate grace, her foot resting lightly against my hand, a reminder that she held the rhythm of this delicate exchange. Her gaze met mine again, steady and knowing. In that look was an unspoken promise. She was in control, but she trusted me enough to let me follow. It was a fragile balance, one I was eager to navigate. For the first time, I understood that desire wasn't just about passion. It was about connection, vulnerability, and the willingness to give and receive power in equal measure. And as her foot curled around my fingers, I felt a profound sense of peace, a belonging in this new dynamic we were creating. This was no longer just a secret or a game. It was a partnership. The night was quiet, the soft glow of a single lamp casting warm shadows across the room. I sat across from her, heart pounding, the weight of everything I'd held inside finally pressing to the surface. I felt this way for a long time, I admitted, voice barely more than a whisper. More than just fascination, it's something deeper. Her eyes searched mine, patient and unjudging, as if she'd been waiting for this moment all along. It's been hard, I continued, trying to hide it, to pretend it wasn't a part of me. She reached out, her bare foot sliding gently across the floor until it brushed against my leg. The contact was soft but grounding, a silent reassurance that I wasn't alone. I never wanted it to be a secret, I said, swallowing hard. But I was scared of what it might mean. She smiled, a quiet warmth that melted away some of the tension. You don't have to be scared anymore. Her foot found my hand, resting there with gentle certainty. I want to be honest with you, I said, to stop hiding. But I don't know how. Her gaze was steady, filled with something that felt like understanding and acceptance. We'll figure it out, she said softly. Together. The words settled over me like a promise, a beginning. For the first time, I felt the walls around me start to crumble, replaced by something fragile and hopeful. It was more than confession. It was an opening, the start of a journey into something new, shared, and real. And as her foot gently pressed against mine, I knew I was ready to take that step. Her eyes locked onto mine with a spark of challenge, daring me to take the next step. The room felt smaller, the air thick with anticipation and unspoken promises. So, she said softly, a teasing smile playing on her lips, if you feel that way, why don't you do something about it? The question hung between us, simple yet loaded with meaning. My heart raced as I searched for the courage I'd hidden away for so long. I reached out slowly, my fingers brushing against her ankle, feeling the warmth beneath my touch. She didn't pull away. Instead, her toes flexed lightly, as if encouraging me forward. The silence stretched, filled with everything we weren't saying. It was a moment of truth, a quiet invitation to surrender, to embrace the unknown. I swallowed hard, the weight of years pressing down, but also a surge of hope pushing me ahead. I whispered, voice trembling, more than anything. Her smile deepened, the kind that promised patience and understanding, but also a spark of excitement. Then show me, she said, voice low and inviting. With a newfound determination, I began to trace the contours of her foot again, slower, more confident this time. Every movement felt charged with meaning, a conversation without words. She leaned back, eyes half closed, savoring the touch. For the first time, I realized that acting on my feelings wasn't just about desire. It was about trust, vulnerability, and stepping into a space we were creating together. And in that charged silence, I knew this was only the beginning of a journey neither of us could predict. The evening air was thick with unspoken words as we sat close, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows that danced across the room. Our breaths mingled, slow and steady, the quiet moments stretching longer than I expected. Her bare foot rested lightly against my leg, sending a warmth that seemed to pulse between us. My heart pounded louder, drowning out the silence. Our eyes met, a charged connection that held everything we were afraid to say. Slowly, almost hesitantly, our faces edged closer, the space between us shrinking with every heartbeat. The world around us blurred, and I felt the pull, the magnetic draw of something more, something dangerous and thrilling all at once. Her eyes fluttered shut just as my lips brushed against her cheek, a soft, tentative touch that held promise and hesitation. For breath, I thought we'd crossed the line. The kiss was there, waiting, a fragile moment suspended in time. But then she pulled back just enough, eyes opening to meet mine with a mixture of warmth and warning. Not yet, she whispered, her voice a tender caress. The room seemed to hold its breath as the tension lingered, thick and heavy, charged with the possibilities that lay ahead. Her foot pressed gently against my hand, a silent reminder of the delicate balance we were navigating. In that near kiss, everything shifted, a quiet acknowledgement that this was more than just a game. It was the start of something real, something fragile, and infinitely complicated. And as we sat there, hearts racing in the soft light, I knew that the moment we'd been waiting for was coming, when nothing would be held back. But for now, the waiting was part of the thrill. The silence after the almost kiss was thick with everything left unsaid. We sat close, the faint glow of the lamp casting soft shadows, wrapping us in a cocoon of quiet tension. Her eyes held mine, steady, searching, full of questions and answers that danced just beyond the edge of words. She whispered, barely above a breath, "Don't forget who's in control." The words hung in the air, a gentle reminder wrapped in softness and steel. Her bare foot brushed lightly against my thigh, deliberate and sure, sending a ripple through me that was both grounding and electrifying. It was a line drawn in the sand, a boundary and an invitation all at once. I felt the weight of it, the delicate balance of power and trust we'd built piece by piece. In that moment, I understood that this connection wasn't about surrendering fully or taking over completely. It was a dance, a give and take where control shifted fluidly between us. She smiled softly, the kind of smile that spoke of confidence and care, strength and vulnerability. The space between us was charged, alive with possibility and the thrill of the unknown. I wanted to lean in, to cross that line, but I held back, savoring the tension, the exquisite tease of waiting. Her foot curled gently, a quiet assertion of presence and promise. We were both navigating this new terrain, careful and curious, learning the rhythms of a bond that defied easy definition. And as the night deepened, I knew this was a beginning, a fragile, beautiful step into a world where lines blurred and connection ruled. The night had wrapped itself around the city like a velvet cloak, quiet and still. We parted ways softly, the air thick with the weight of everything that had unfolded between us. Later, as I returned to my apartment, I noticed something resting on my desk, a delicate anklet, small and shining in the moonlight. It was hers, a silent message, a token of the connection we'd forged, fragile yet undeniable. The anklet felt heavy with meaning, a reminder that what we had begun was far from over. It wasn't just a symbol of what had passed, but a promise of what was still to come. The warmth of her presence lingered in the air, the echo of her touch still vivid in my mind. I traced the small charm with my fingers, feeling the pull of anticipation and longing intertwined. Whatever this was, this slow-burning dance of desire and trust, it had only just begun, and I was ready to follow wherever it led. The line between curiosity and surrender had blurred, leaving behind a path paved with quiet promises and electric moments. As I looked out into the night, the anklet in my hand, I knew that our story was still being written. This was not an ending. It was a beginning,